Do you remember the cooler? Pocket 8 and 8-7. 7-7-8.
Do I remember? Yes, I remember. And the hand before you, like 3 hands before, you hurricaned in like 300 big blinds with some. And then 2 hands later, you get top full versus strips.
I like this one.
Okay. Coming.
I mean, I like everything.
I hope you're balanced with your responses to my cards.
Yeah, I'm very balanced. I like 2 cards.
You like start telling a story?
I did 2 cards.
You know, I played a big pot with that one once.
14.
It was super juicy, you know.
We are playing 500, 1,000 with a $2,000 big blind ante at Hustler Casino Live. This is their $1 million cash game, the main event in this hand. Doug Polk, heads up, super crusher, YouTube sensation. He says it like he thinks it is. Folds around to him in the cutoff. He opens it up with a 5-4 spades. Tom Dwan, he's been smashing for forever.
Nice.
He picks up pocket 7s in the small blind and bumps it up to 14,000. Calling's fine when you're playing in a game that has negligible rake. 3-betting's also fine, though. Tom does bump it up. Over to Doug Polk, you may be surprised to see him call with only the 5 high. But playing deep stacked in position with any sort of suited, connected hand, you have to call, you have to see the flop. You got to be willing to get that $1 million in the pot sometimes. Let's go to the flop.
How much did you like his hand? Was it
Doug Polk opening the suited connector in the cutoff. Tom Dwan puts in the 3-bet from the small blind and flops middle set. 31,000 in the middle. Tom bets about half pot. And Doug Polk is going to float.
Before the flop, it is worth noting that Doug showed Wesley his hand. Now look, if I'm playing for $1 million, I'm probably not showing anybody my cards because I don't know if they have a good poker face. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know if they're friends with my opponent. So, you should probably keep your cards a secret. That said, I do know that some people like creating an overly friendly environment, like having good camaraderie at the table, which, I'm all for, but at the same time, not at the risk of letting somebody else see my cards. Anyway, Wesley sees Doug Polk's hand, and Tom's already trying to figure out, what did Wesley say? Is he giving off some sort of a read? Maybe he is, maybe it isn't. I would hope that Wesley's going to be reasonably balanced in this spot so that he doesn't end up liquidating all of Doug Polk's money. Who knows what's actually happening here, though. Anyway, flop comes King, 7, 2. 2 diamonds, 1 spade. Tom Dwan has the middle set. That's pretty good. Doug Polk has 5 high. But it's a pretty good 5 high because it has a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. Tom bets 15,000. And normally, when you flop a set in a 3-bet pot, especially if the board's kind of uncoordinated, you're going to want to bet relatively small. But these players are playing 1,000 big blinds deep. As you get deeper and deeper stacked, typically bigger bets should be used. I'm actually not the most studied player in 1,000 big blind deep poker, so I'm going to presume Tom knows exactly what he is doing. So Tom does go for half pot. Over to Doug. He has the 5 high, but he has position. And he has a lot of turn cards that are going to give him pretty good equity. So, look, if he was facing a smaller bet, like let's say even 10,000 into the 30,000 pot, this would just be an easy call. Facing a slightly bigger bet of 15,000, it starts to get a little bit closer. And if Tom bet bigger, then Doug can just easily fold. Doug does decide to call, though. He likes to battle. Let's head to the turn.
Needs running cards to make a hand. That's a good one. Doug is now open-ended.
Days, Danny. Doug and Tom battling. I mean,
Win on the river with an 8 or a 3.
Tilt software. Let's get this going. We were actually slightly different eras. Really? Tom got big like 4 or 5 years before me. You got big? I guess 34 or however many years before me.
This seems to be the Ivy.
Phil Ivy? Yeah. Sure, yeah, call him.
Another half pot bet.
115.
And Doug's gonna raise. We know Tom's not folding.
115.
115, yeah.
He's got the second nuts. Doesn't really have to worry about Doug having pocket kings too much. Doug would have likely 4-bet before the flop. So in Dur's eyes, he actually has the nuts.
Wait, really?
The turn card brings the 6 of hearts, which is excellent for Tom Dwan because a flush does not come in. And it actually improves Doug Polk quite a bit. So Tom does go for another half pot bet, which I think is perfectly reasonable. Over to Doug. Should he call? Should he fold? Should he raise? What do you think? Take a second, think about it. Folding is out of the question. You cannot fold. The only options here are to call, which is definitely reasonable, or to raise. And when you are considering which hands you want to raise with on the turn, quite often some of the best hands to raise are hands that have no showdown value at all, but still have decent equity even when you are called. And we see in this scenario, Doug actually has 18%, which, 18% is not a ton, but it's certainly not zero, right? So I think this 5-4 is actually a pretty great hand to raise with, and he does. He makes it 115,000. He pulls out the big guns. Yes! And so, back over to Tom Dwan. Let's see what he does.
115. Doug raised to 115, not 150. Dur's wondering, does he have a smaller set? Or is he on a draw? Tom really taking his time here. Perhaps trying to feign weakness. Perhaps just thinking it over.
All right, come on, man. Let's move it along a little bit here.
Can I laugh? No. Can I laugh?
Can you laugh?
Yeah.
You just did.
I mean, is that okay for you? 'Cause
It's a little weird. He saw your hand. Raising the turn. There's like a little bit to think about.
Tom Dwan was the first hot shot
no, I didn't say his hand. I said this whole process.
coming from the internet to the live poker world.
Yeah.
Doug is having a lot of regrets right now.
You know, Wesley, this might be the last sweat you get to go on today. It's like, oh, time to tell stories.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know if you guys know each other. It's 1,000 big blinds deep. You're raising the
I think
turn.
that doesn't matter for. I don't think that matters.
Don't think that much.
All right, we got to move this.
Then Doug came along
I think
about 4 or 5 years later. Same path.
You just go clock.
is that okay? I don't want to be a but is clock reasonable here?
Yeah, I call clock on Jared B.
Wave.
All right, I'll call the clock.
What did they do call clock during this week?
This is kind of a bizarre
How
tank.
long is the clock?
1 minute.
Score's on the way.
It happened already this week. I won't worry about being a
Yeah, just whatever you need.
After Doug Polk puts in the raise, Tom Dwan goes into the tank for 3.5 minutes. It's a long tank. That said, they are playing 1,000 big blinds deep. You know what? Let's hear what Tom had to say about getting the clock called on him in the spot.
You just played a really big pot against Doug Polk. I guess there was a little bit of controversy going on.
There was Why is there always controversy?
Well, I know the clock was called on the turn, and then
yeah, I thought that one was a little quick.
River. So what went down that hand? Tell us what happened.
Well, so what I said to Rob, I normally try to be like quite courteous. Obviously, if someone calls the clock on me in the middle of a hand, that goes out the window. I'm like max extracting value, especially if I think they called early. So it is what it is, you know, but I did think it was a little bad form to call it so quick on the turn. It's 1,000 big blind pot. I had a very real decision, you know.
Well, it's weird when you're in the hand because time moves differently, you know?
Sorry for Dog and Tom. I'm not saying anything anymore. Like, I don't want to. Yeah.
I call.
Interesting. Just a call.
I didn't see a fold after the take, Danny. Like, that would have put me on tilt. Oh, man.
I realize these players are playing for $1 million, 1,000 big blinds, but 3.5 minutes on a turn decision is a long time. I would generally think that when someone does call clock, assuming they don't call clock all the time, that usually they are going to be very polarized, either the nuts or a draw of some sort. Now, in this scenario, the draws do have a ton of equity, but a lot of the draws are going to continue bluffing on the river. And notice in this spot, Tom really blocks the strong hands quite well because it's way less likely that Doug has King 7 or 7-6, both of which may also put in a turn raise. So that makes it more likely Doug is bluffing. If Doug is bluffing, that should make Tom far more likely to call because even though he is going to get outdrawn some portion of the time, he's also going to induce a ton of river bluffs. So after a while, Tom does find the call. Let's head to the river.
Battling.
Boat
Got that sweet baby there.
for Dur.
Check.
How much, Doug?
$420.
420.
Snap call. If not, snap jam. But again, Tom's taking his time.
Let's get one of these. Let's get one of these hands. Look how much money I'm willing to put out there.
The river comes the 6 of spades, giving Tom Dwan a full house and giving Doug Polk 5 high. Tom checks, as he's going to do with his entire range, and Doug has to decide if he should blast the river, or perhaps even bet tiny on the river. This is a spot where when Doug raises the turn, he should be very, very polarized at that point, right? Which means he either has a busted draw or he has a really good made hand. And a lot of the really good made hands just got a whole lot better, like King 6 or 7-6 or pocket 6s, all of which make a whole lot of sense. So I don't think he wants to have very many small bets on the river. Whenever you do get to the river with a really trashy draw, like 5 high, sometimes it does make sense to use small bets because by betting small, you can get your opponent to fold out their hands like 9-8 suited or ace-x of diamonds, right? But this is a spot that because Doug's range should not contain a whole lot of medium-ish strength made hands like King-Queen because he's not going to raise those on the turn, he really should not use a whole lot of small bets on this river, I don't think. Again, I'm not a super-duper expert at 1,000 big blind poker, but I think in this spot, Doug either wants to have big bets or small, or big bets only, right? So Doug does go for the $420,000 bet. About 1.3x pot. I don't think this bluff's going to work.
I think only call is best here.
Any tells for Doug, so he's good.
Are you going to call the clock again?
I think Tom was worried they were too deep to get the money in on the turn. The hands that
420.
aren't bluffs that could take this line are, of course, slow played pocket kings, pocket sixes, which just made quads, and pocket deuces, which would probably
Weird
fold
someone try to call the clock on the turn.
to a jam.
Like, I'd like to see. I feel like it was like 2 minutes. Like, it's 1,000 big blind deep pot. Someone's calling the clock on the turn. It's a little weird.
Gotta believe Doug's gonna be steamed up after this one.
For sure better. A Doug vs. Tom fight would definitely break the viewership record.
I'm just happy that even if he calls, it won't break my record as the biggest pot, so I'm not really sweating it.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It's close, but
Hands is the man. And it's not even close.
no, it's pretty close.
What is their thinking? As crazy as it might sound, if you go all in,
420.
you're probably only getting called by better. But you're also never folding. So put in the call.
Who needs a big ante?
Win the pot. It's going to be over $1.1 million. And listen to Doug rant. Gotta believe he's going to rant after this one. Wesley catching up on some sleep.
Wes liked his hand, he said. I like this hand.
Tom is again in the tank, taking his sweet time trying to figure out what to do in this spot, and he is considering the fact that he heard Wesley say pre-flop, "I like your hand." Maybe that's a bit of a read that's going to sway Tom's decision between shoving and calling. But what I want to know is when you hear someone who looked at your opponent's hand say something like that, do you think that usually means that Doug in this scenario has a very strong pre-flop hand or a relatively loose splashy pre-flop hand? Take a second, think about it, and write what you would do in the comment section below.
So apparently Wes said, "I like your hand,"
Doug's giving it his all to take
when Doug showed him pre-flop.
This is the biggest bet probably Doug's ever made.
That's probably never going to be pocket kings.
He's only bet 25. 100k.
Oh, no, like 4K.
Oh, he's got 2.5%.
One, I think.
Let's put it out. Who's got off the lap?
Rob, you live in London?
No, Nottingham. You know Robin Hood?
Yeah.
He's in the film? Nottingham, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Guess it could be.
But I'll go to London in July and August for Triton.
Could be 7-6. But 7-6 suited's not available, so it's probably not. I think the players will give her the business after this one. And I think that's correct. Doug doesn't want to call the clock here because that might make Tom call. So he just has to sit there tortured.
Rob. Who's your walker?
Even the people on the painting behind Tom have fallen asleep.
I like this hand.
So what happened was Doug opened, Dur 3-bet, Doug called and showed his cards to Wesley. Just a friendly thing to do at the poker table. Wes said, I like this hand, which does give away some information about Doug's holding. And in my opinion, it makes it incredibly unlikely that Doug has pocket kings. So if you're Dur, you're only worried about pocket sixes. And once you realize Doug can't have 7-6 suited, there's not a lot to get value from. You just call. And if you see quads, you see quads.
C5, couple cards on C7. It's gonna raise more than
Dur. What are we doing?
You win.
I know I win probably.
Uh-oh.
The question was just if I'm shoving or not, dude. It's if I shove the river or not. I'm never folding. It's if I shove the river or not. Do I shove or not?
Of course you shove.
No, it's pretty close.
Of course you shove.
It's definitely close.
Pretty close.
And I think it's not a shove.
I'm going to take a break after that one.
What happened pre-flop?
Open card.
You're a good actor.
I'm deciding do I shove or not.
No.
Well, luckily I'm not worried that you gave anything away anymore.
I think he called because of Wesley.
Yeah, because of me. Yeah. Maybe I fold his. I saw that you have a diamond 8-9.
Now we know Tom hates Doug.
What a hand.
It's a weird spot to call.
I am adding on some money.
Oh my God, the game is bloody.
We're gonna get 600K.
Doug, how many videos have you made of Tom? That was the payback.
I like this Doug Polk.
The turn clock call is like a little weird, man. It's like it's been like 2 minutes.
He's not 4-bet you in position, yeah? He hasn't got kings.
No, you're good.
I don't want.
These two used to have beef, Doug and Tom.
Okay, Wesley, you're okay.
That was for the...
There's 2 combos. There's 6-7 suited, king 6 suited, right? I should shove the river normally, like by right.
That hand did not do anything to alleviate that beef.
After what feels like 40 forevers of tanking again, Tom Dwan finally calls the $420,000 bet. Now, you may ask, why would he slow roll the legendary Doug Polk? He's so nice to everyone. Why would you do this to a YouTube personality? Well, you have to realize that in this scenario, Tom is thinking, should I raise, right? And in this situation, you want to consider which hands will bet gigantic on the river and then call if Tom goes all in. And in this situation, you want to consider what Doug's range looks like. So, which hands will Doug bet the river with that will always call the river that Tom loses to? Well, there are 3 combinations of pocket kings available. However, remember that Doug just called Tom's preflop 3-bet. Maybe Doug Polk 4-bets kings every single time preflop, in which case there would now be 0. Maybe he 3-bets or 4-bets them 2/3 of the time, in which case there's now 1 combination, right? So it's difficult to know how many combinations of kings there are, because those hands are always going to bet the river and they're always going to call a shove, right? Next, pocket sixes. I think you could definitely have the 1 combination of pocket sixes, so that's clearly in there. All right, those are the hands that Tom loses to. That's 2, 1, 3, 4 combinations, somewhere in there of hands that Tom loses to. Next, what does Tom beat? Well, Tom beats king 6 of clubs. Notice the other king 6s are not available. I gotta presume Doug's not gonna call a 3-bet preflop with king 6 offsuit. He may not even call with the king 6 suited, to be fair. So there's 1 combination of those that will always call, and then Tom wins. What about pocket 2s? Would Polk bet the river with pocket 2s and then call a shove? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's tough to know, because in this spot, I think Tom could definitely have all of the hands that beat pocket 2s in this spot. He's probably not going to tank forever like this and then put in a bluff, right? So pocket 2s may actually fold. There are 3 combinations of those that Tom beats, but I think they may actually fold to a shove, especially after all of this insane action. Next, would king 7 of spades find a hero call? Because it has blockers to pocket kings and pocket 7s and 7-6. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but there's only 1 combination of that. And again, after this entire long tanking process, if Tom finally does put his money in, it'd be a pretty savage call. So, there's something like 1, 2, or 3 losses for Tom Dwan, and then 1 win, plus maybe up to 4 hands that would call that Tom beats, pocket 2s and maybe king 7 of spades. Notice there are no 7-6 suiteds because those are all blocked by Tom's hand in the board. So, in this spot, I think calling's probably reasonable for Tom, especially given he thinks Doug may call preflop with pocket kings against the 3-bet. So, look, it's a dicey spot. I realize there's a little bit of math involved here. You do need to think these things over when you're in Tom's shoes. You need to, like, triple think these things over when you're in Tom's shoes because you're playing for a ton of money. And I think in this spot, especially if you actually care about the money that is at risk, which, you know, you shouldn't if you're playing a cash game, but I realize these players are probably all playing quite big for them, you may want to be slightly less inclined to take on gigantic risk. And right here, imagine Tom knows he's going to make an extra $2,000 by shoving, but he's going to experience an extra, what, $400,000 in swings? $500,000 in swings, something like that? It's probably not worth it if it is a close spot. Now, look, if Tom wins on the river when he shoves and gets called like 60% of the time or so, then it's just an obvious shove because you're extracting a ton of value. But if you think it's close, it's probably okay to just find the call. So anyway, Tom Dwan wins. He wins all the money again. Who'd have thought? Nice hand for him. And to be fair, look, I think Doug had to bluff this spot. I think it's a very, very easy spot to bluff, and he just ran into it. Sometimes you run into it. A lot of people chicken out when the river pairs, but you have to realize in this spot, Tom's gonna have a lot of hands like aces or ace-king or king-queen or busted draws, and all of those are going to be put in a really, really, really dicey spot when you blast the river. So I like Doug's play throughout this entire hand. Maybe he could have folded the flop, but once he gets to the turn, he just has to go for it, and congrats to him for having the courage to make the play, even though this time it did not work out. That's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, click the like and subscribe buttons down below. Make sure you click the notification bell, and also, we have another video lined up where Doug Polk the Battler battles again against one of my favorite poker video bloggers, Brad Owen. Check it out. I'll talk to all of you next time.